Greetings everyone. Today I wanted to talk about Pokemon Go. First off, my opinion on it is that it had a very strong start. It had a very strong following and a lot of people that wanted to play the game all together. Like, whenever I went outside, it was more than likely that I was going to find someone who was into a game, and we got to communicate with one another, including our teams and such. Very rarely would it ever get toxic, even though I've heard stories of toxic activity and behavior and such. It never got terrible. It never got out of hand to me, even though I've heard stories of it, and I've heard stories about the whole flood of people that wanted frickin' Lapras, but who could blame them, because frickin' Lapras is frickin' awesome. Anyway, at some point, Pokemon Go started to wear thin. And, well, the reasoning behind that was the lack of content. Once people caught a lot of Pokemon, they just didn't feel like having to go through a whole swarm of Rattata, and the whole leveling up process eventually got bad. 150,000 experience to level up was just tedium at its finest. And at some point, I just decided to say screw it and just move on. And I mean, I did have a great experience with Pokemon Go, but after a while, there were just people that just were getting tired of the game, and thus, the excitement died down. Now this is where Niantic comes into play. I feel like Niantic Labs is to blame here, because when the game first came out, there was a number of glitches, and stuff like your Pokeball freezing, and then you having to reset your game to fix it. It happened multiple times, and then there were glitches where you had to reset the game constantly. There was like this whole mode where you could just, I think it was where you could turn off something or disable it. I've kind of forgotten. And it would cause your character to constantly walk, and you wouldn't be able to tap on anything. That results in another reset of the game. Oh, that's right. That was the power savings. My bad. And on top of that, I feel like the gym battles were just mediocre at best. All it consisted was of a mini-game and not an actual battle. CP didn't really matter that much to me because I found that even with my low CP, I was able to defeat several Pokemon. It just, to me, I feel like there were a bunch of things that still need to be worked on overall. But I was forgiving back then because the game was new, and I was willing to give it a chance despite this. That, and I was having fun with the game surprisingly. So, fast forward to a few months and it being near the end of the year. Pokemon Go starts to get stale, and a lot of people complain about this. What does Niantic do? Nothing. Instead, they throw in a few updates themed after holidays, and it's nothing interesting, just that certain Pokemon will come out that you more than likely caught at this point. But that's just the thing. It seemed like they had given up, or else they just wanted to wait for Gen 2. And then, lo and behold, they introduce Gen 2 of Pokemon Go. At this point, though, a lot of people lost interest. Why? Because Niantic was late to the party. I feel like this update would have been much better received if it had been released within 4 or 5 months. Because at this point, a lot of people were just getting tired of the game. Like, it was getting popular, and then that popularity died down because it seemed like Niantic just didn't want to put any effort into it. But the second update was just handled so badly. First off, there was no trailer way before this, so there was no hype at all. There was no announcement that they were going to throw in an update. And believe me, I subscribe to Nintendo's YouTube channel, so you would think that Nintendo would announce that they're planning to add in Gen 2 Pokemon. Spoiler, they don't. It seemed like Nintendo just wanted to ignore the game at this point, or didn't want to acknowledge its existence, which confuses me. So I decided to go out today and try out this new update to see how it was and how everything has been improved. There's still no trading, there's still no battling, just walking around, catching Pokemon, taking over gyms for your team. Oh yeah, there's the daily thing where you can earn rewards for catching Pokemon daily and for going to your first Pokestop daily. But the experience curve is still awful. So I quickly remembered just how much of a tedium that was and just decided, okay, I'm not going to bother trying to level up. I'm just going to catch new Pokemon and just let it end at that, you know? Like I just was not going to try and spend money this time around. And yes, I did spend money on this game. I was an idiot. Like I should not have done that. It was a really stupid thing of me to do. But hey, we all make mistakes, you know. Now, as far as the update goes, I feel like it was a good move to finally add in Gen 2 to try to attract interest back. But like I mentioned earlier on, they were too slow. They just moved at turtle's pace and just took way too long to release this update. And I feel like that was the biggest problem because at this point, people were losing interest due to the lack of content. And at this point, they decided to say enough was enough. That and Pokemon Sun and Moon were out. So at this point, they're playing that instead of this because that game has a storyline, has much better gameplay to it. You get the idea. The thing is, Pokemon Go was a really interesting experiment, and I really appreciate the fact that I got to meet new people. But as I went outside today, I didn't even get to see that again. There were no Pokerooers whatsoever, no matter where I went. There wasn't even a single person playing the game. It seemed like the interest in it completely died off. And it was actually kind of depressing because I remember how strong of a start this game had, and now it's dead. There were a group of these kids being like, "Oh, you still play that game?" And I'm like, and I've just walked past them, ignore them and such. But you get the idea. It's like, okay, I kind of realized just how dull this got. Like I said, it's just depressing to me. And I feel like Niantic is at fault here, because they just took way too long than they needed to. But then again, maybe I shouldn't blame them entirely, because I'm sure not everyone who worked for them were as bad or as incompetent, like the people at Konami that were on strike because of how harsh they were being treated and telling people about how awful the employment was there. Well, anyway, I have to say this. I'm not trying to bash this game, because I still kind of like it. It's like a guilty pleasure of mine at this point. But yeah, the hype is dead. And I feel like there needs to be a lesson learned here, not to follow the path of Niantic, because Niantic themselves is what killed this game due to their lack of interest and due to their desire to even update their game and try to fix things that people complained about. That's all, everyone. Stay shy.